I think one of the most important lessons that we need to learn as managers, but it's often the hardest, is how to deliver honest feedback. And I remember when I was a manager, a youngish officer, we'd hired an individual, a young vice president, from another firm, who was definitely a more star-oriented firm than ours, which is very focused on teamwork and working together to push the franchise or the interest of the client forward. And it turned out that over his early days in the firm, he kept putting himself in front of the team, himself in front of the firm, particularly with the press. And it was clear that he wasn't what the press was interested in, and it wasn't in the interest of the firm by any means to have him out there on his own. He had in many ways committed the cardinal sin at Morgan Stanley of focusing on himself to the exclusion of others. And in a firm such as ours and many others, the team orientation to work together and to push together for the client is critical. So critical that when the press calls up and says, we'd like to talk to your banker who did XYZ deal, we say, well, it wasn't a banker, it was a team. Well, could we have the picture of the banker? Well, it wasn't a banker, it was a team. If you're a team photograph, we could give you a team photograph. And this individual had gone out and done something completely different. And it was disruptive to the team, difficult for the franchise, and a very bad message for the people who worked for him. And with an issue like that, if you don't get it early, it can be very divisive. So it was clear to me I had several options as a young manager. One, I could let it go. It was early in the year. I could let it go to the end of the year and give it to him in his annual review. I could ignore it and hope it went away and he'd pick it up by osmosis, or I could deal with it directly. And it was going to be an uncomfortable meeting and not something I really wanted to do. So I went to talk to the new CEO at the time, and we talked it through, and he said, no, it's a serious issue. It's about culture. It's about how you work with other people. It's going to have a divisive impact given where he sits with other people. We need to deal with it now. So we pulled him in, told him in a very straightforward, honest, direct, aggressively but constructively critical way why he was behaving in a way that was contrary to the culture and the interests of the firm, that he had 6 weeks to show significant progress, and frankly, if he didn't make significant progress, we would ask him to leave the firm. It was a very uncomfortable meeting, I think, for all three of us. But I'm delighted to say he took the criticism on board, he worked on it immediately, he became very much a team player, and he's gone on to be successively promoted and a terrific player at the firm. And I think the question for all of us often is how best to manage our people. And wouldn't it be easier to sugarcoat it, to sugarcoat the message? And so the lesson for me is that the soft option is never an option. It's not fair to the individual concerned. It's not fair to the firm and its clients. And if a manager is honest and direct and candid, then he is actually doing a great deal of good and being very honest with his colleague. I think a lot of people figure, well, with luck it'll go away. And in my experience, a problem like this never goes away. It probably increases in intensity and becomes much worse and therefore much harder to deal with. And so at an early stage, it was a useful lesson for me, a difficult one, that honesty and candor with people, as soon as you can be that way with them, is fair to them, good for them, and good for the firm. I think when you're having a conversation with an individual who's having some difficulties, you need to be very clear what the issues are. You need to be supportive, very supportive, and constructively critical. But at the end of the day, neither you nor the individual concerned can be under any misunderstanding as to what was said, what was required from both parties, and what will happen if either party doesn't deliver what it's supposed to do. And people look for stability, they look for honesty, they look for a certain measure of loyalty. And I think being candid and giving people honest feedback is loyal to them and loyal to the firm.